Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. This is the third and final part of the Heaven's Gate cult series. So if you haven't seen part 1 or part 2 yet, I will put a card here and I will also link them in the description box. Normally at the beginning of these videos, I would take a couple minutes to talk about our sponsor. But today I'm gonna do something a little bit different because I have a message for people. And it's also a message I need to hear. This video, this cult we're talking about in this series, they were all about distancing themselves from loved ones, from human emotions, from their own physical bodies, from the physical world. And it's easy to distance ourselves from the people who made the decision to do this. But if you think about it, a lot of us make the decision to do this kind of thing every day. We make the decision to distance ourselves from our loved ones. We're so caught up in social media and what's happening on our phones and what's happening in the world that we kind of miss sometimes what's happening in our own homes or right in front of us. But even so, love still exists. I've had so many of you say to me in the comment section that even just the past few days, Stephanie, I've had such a tough week. I really needed this. Stephanie, life's not been easy. I really needed this. Stephanie, I've been feeling sick or I've been stuck in bed. I've been stuck in the hospital. This really helped me. And I want to let you guys know that you guys really helped me too. There's always stuff going on in everybody's life. And I have a great life. For the most part, I'm very healthy. My kids are healthy, which is more important than anything. I have a good marriage and I have the opportunity to talk to you guys every single week and share with you my passions and my creative expression. But of course, I have bad days. I have bad weeks. I have bad months. And this past week for me too was a hard one. And I have to let you know that being able to talk with you guys in the comments, being able to just see your love and your positivity and your support has made me feel better. So while you guys are giving me all these props for making you feel better and being there for you, understand you're there for me too, and I appreciate you more than words can say. So even though we as a society are so much more distant from everybody now with social media, with stress from work, just it's the kind of world that we're living in now. We're also so much more connected. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Love Actually, but it's one of my favorite movies to watch during Christmas. And in the beginning, the scene is everybody in an airport greeting their loved ones. And then they end it before they go into the actual movie and they say, love is all around us. And guys, you've proven to me multiple times, every single week, every single video, you are there for me in the comments. You're giving me your love. You're giving me your support. And love is all around us. And I appreciate you guys so much. And a special shout out to Brianna Clements. Your boyfriend reached out to me and he said you haven't been feeling your best, but he loves you and he cares about you. And he knows that you like watching my videos. And he thought that if I, spoke to you in one of my videos, you would feel better. And I think that's the sweetest thing. It's just the sweetest thing for him to go out of his way to make you feel better, to make you happier. Isn't that amazing? That's what I'm saying. Like, love is there if you want to find it and if you want to see it. And you got a good one there. And I'm hoping you're feeling better. And I'm hoping you have a better week next week. And I hope you really like this video. I hope you guys all like this video. It's the final part of the Heaven's Gate series. And I'm gonna give you guys a couple more pieces of channel news at the end of the video. But right now, I just wanna get right in. I love you guys all so much. Thank you so much. I cannot say it enough how much I appreciate you. Let's get started. So I'm getting a late start today. It's 6 instead of 5:30, which gives me just about an hour. Oh no, it's not gonna be easy. It gives me like an hour and 15 minutes to record this video. So that means I have to get it pretty much one shot. I can't mess up at all. No pressure. Heaven's Gate exit videos were thought-provoking for me, to say the least. Most of them seemed genuinely happy and ready. They said, "We don't hate our families, we're not trying to hurt anybody, but we're just ready to go." Some were more ready than others, I think. They said they'd hate the world and what it had become. After the exit videos are recorded, they turn off the camera, they all go out for pizza. The bill was $417.27, and then they go see a movie called Secrets and Lies. The next day at 2 p.m., they have their final dinner, their last meal together, at a local Marie Callender's in Carlsbad. They all ordered turkey pot pies and iced tea with lemon, and the waitress who served them said they were very polite, very nice. They all seemed to be enjoying themselves, and they all seemed like a family. They only stayed 45 minutes, and then they were gone. They had a book that they wrote in and recorded everything in for years, and it was called the Comm Center Daily Log. This is a log that would be written in every time a member would leave the house or the group, and it would basically be filled in with their name, how much money they had on them when they left, and their estimated time of return. Before the suicides began on March 22nd, they all sign out of the Comm Center Daily Log for the last time. One by one, they all walked up to the log, they wrote their name, the time they were signing out, and in the column labeled estimated time of return, they wrote never, bye, hasta la vista. Some put X's there, some put just dashes, some wrote question marks. The act of writing everybody's name in this book took about 2 hours, and if all they'd been doing was walking up to the book, writing their name, writing the time, and walking away, it probably wouldn't have taken 2 hours. You're talking under 40 people. Author Ben Zeller, he believes this was a ritualistic act. Between the signing of each name is roughly 2 to 4 minutes. And Ben Zeller says he likes to imagine that as they were writing their name out, maybe they turned around and said something to the group. Or maybe they just silently sat there and looked at the book and said something to themselves. No one who was there the day that they took their own lives is still alive to tell the story. Anyone who couldn't stomach the final step had left the group by now. However, the group created a document called the Routine, which would detail every single step of their suicides. And from this document, we know exactly how it happened. They died in organized shifts. 15 went in the first group with help from 8 other group members. They put on their Nikes, they put on their uniforms and their away team arm patches. They carefully placed what little belongings they had into a duffel bag and then put that next to them as if they were actually going to board a plane or a spaceship and they would need these things. And they each had a $5 bill and a roll of quarters in the pocket of their uniform. And then they took a fatal dose of phenobarbital mixed with applesauce or pudding, and they chased it with a shot of vodka. They placed a plastic bag over their heads and then laid down in their beds. The helper or the assisting member, once they were sure that their friend had died, they took the plastic bag off their heads and covered them with a purple shroud. They could have chosen purple for a lot of reasons. Purple is the color of Lent, the time preceding the Easter holiday, and Christians associate the color purple with the purple robe that was placed on Jesus before he was crucified by the Roman soldiers. In Judaism, purple is thought to symbolize the coming of the Messiah, who would be both God and man and act as a mediator between God and man. Or they could have chosen purple simply because it was Bonnie Lunaddle's favorite color. After the first group were gone, the next group of 15 repeated the same steps, and then 7 more after that. The last 2 to go had no surviving members to help them after they died. Their bodies would be found with plastic bags over their heads and no shroud. Nancy Brown's son, David, was one of these last 2. She always wonders if those 3 phone calls that she received 3 nights in a row were David calling to let her know what he was about to do, to keep his promise that if something was going to happen to him, he'd find a way to tell her. After everyone was gone, an eerie silence would fall over the house. No more classes, no more teachings, no more walks through the citrus grove. Just silence as the souls of 39 people boarded their UFO and were transported to the next level. A few days later, 5 different people received packages all over the country. One of them was Rio D'Angelo, and in his package there was a letter with instructions and a cassette tape. Rio D'Angelo, that's not his real name, that's his group name. He was a former member, and they must have trusted him enough to give him this final task. He was told in the instructions to go to the mansion and enter through the kitchen door, which would have been unlocked. He says he knew what he was going to find when he went into the house. So he sprayed cologne on his shirt and put it over his nose. And then he walked silently through the house, room after room after room, just filled with what I'm sure was quite an eerie sight. You know, people laying in every room, completely still, almost like they're sleeping, but they have shrouds over their heads. The blinds were drawn from the inside, so even though it would have been light outside, inside the house, it would have been dark. Rio D'Angelo also began to film what he was seeing as he walked through the house, and then he called 911.
Hello?
Yes, I need to report an anonymous tip. Who do I talk to?
Okay. This is regarding what?
This is regarding a mass suicide, and I can give you the address.
This was March 26th, so the bodies had only been there for a few days, but it was warm outside and they had started to decompose. And the officers who were first on the scene could smell them before they even walked in, so they called for backup. The first responders falsely reported that there were 39 male victims in the house because they were all wearing the same clothes and sneakers, and they all had short haircuts.
Topping the news at 11 is a story that's making news across the nation and across the world, an apparent mass suicide in Rancho Santa Fe. You're looking at the site where 39 young men have been found dead, men believed to be in a religious group, men who dressed alike, and men with an apparent tragic mission, mass suicide.
All indications are that this was a mass suicide. The group we're talking about here, we know, is a group called Heaven's Gate.
So when it went public, it was first reported on the news that it was a cult who had taken their lives, but they were all men. This gave the families of Heaven's Gate some false hope. They thought, my child's not in an all-male cult. There's women in the cult that my child is in, so this cannot be their cult. But all the families would be notified by telephone very shortly after the bodies were found, and it would extinguish any last flame of hope that they had, that their child had survived this. Wayne Cook and Charles Humphrey had joined the cult or the group Heaven's Gate in the 70s, but they had both parted ways with the group in the months leading up to the suicides. Wayne's wife, Sylvia, had remained behind when he left, and she was one of the people who was found dead in the mansion that morning. Not even 2 months later, on May 7th, 1997, both of these men would check into a Holiday Inn not far from the Heaven's Gate mansion. They would take the same phenobarbital and applesauce mixture, and they would try to join their fellow crew members. The 2 men were discovered wearing black sneakers and purple shrouds. Wayne Cook did not make it, but Charles Humphrey was found in time. They were able to get him to the hospital, and he was soon released. When Charles was released and went home, he figured this was his sign to keep the message alive and keep spreading it around the world to everybody who would listen. In February of 1998, Charles Humphrey would attempt to join his fellow crew members again, and this time he would succeed. He killed himself with carbon monoxide, and when his body was found, there was a purple shroud next to it. He was wearing black sweatpants and a black t-shirt, and an armband that said Heaven's Gate Away Team, and in his pocket, there was a $5 bill and a roll of quarters. 2 other former Heaven's Gate members would also take their own lives to join the next level. Something that really disturbs me about this entire thing is that these people died. Whether you think it was smart of them or stupid of them, or if they were being manipulated, or if they did it of their own free will, they died. And there was people out there trying to profit off of it. The San Diego public administrator held an auction to basically sell off the things that were left in the house, including the bunk beds that they died on. They said it was to compensate for the investigation that they had to conduct into the mass suicides and the media frenzy to follow. And a man named Nick Markowitz, in partnership with Rio DeAngelo, the ex-cult member who had found the bodies and recorded what he saw, they sold the television rights to ABC for like a movie of the week. That's what these people's lives were worth in the end, a cheap ABC movie of the week. So who are the people who would join a cult like Heaven's Gate? At first glance, it would seem like they were people who were kind of in the same position that Bonnie Lou and Marshall were when they met, whose lives were kind of in a shambles, who didn't have direction, who weren't sure about what the meaning of life was, or if there even was a meaning at all. These people would have felt like they were in a free fall when everybody else around them seemed to know what they were doing and what their purpose was. These people felt like they had no idea. And maybe some of these people were just lost souls who found a place to belong and held onto it till the very end. The most common theme and thread throughout every single person who was a part of this group, whether they came and went or whether they stayed till the end, was that they were seeking something. They were seekers. The group sent out the message that if you are someone who has felt like you don't belong, or you've had to search for answers when those around you do not, you're meant for this. You are one of us. You belong here. You are special, an otherworldly being trapped in a human shell. That is why you've felt different all your life, because you are. And who among us hasn't felt lost in life at one point or the other? Who here hasn't felt like the odd man out? Or that you were meant for something more that life just wasn't giving you? Who hasn't wondered and looked up at the stars and felt so small and said to themselves, is this it? Is this life? What's out there? Is there more than this out there? They weren't all hippies or wanderers or people who had experienced some loss or hardship. A lot of them were middle upper class members of society. They had good jobs. They were highly educated. They had strong family structures. Some were young, some were old. But they all felt that the world didn't hold for them what they needed at a soul-deep level. One of the people who joined was named Gail Maeder. She was a young girl. She grew up in Sag Harbor, Long Island, to a really warm and loving family. They had a swimming pool. They would throw these big themed pool parties for their neighbors. She was really close with her parents, not close in the way where she's like, yeah, they're my parents, I love them, but like she wanted to hang out with her parents. She was beautiful and smart and socially conscious and aware. She didn't use paper towels because she was concerned with the environment. She loved animals. She left Long Island to move to California with her boyfriend, and there they opened up a little shop. They lived in the hills. They became a part of the, kind of new age culture. They made a lot of friends, and then something happened. We're not sure what happened, but Gail decided to join Heaven's Gate. It could have been because her shop failed. It could have been because she broke up with her boyfriend. Regardless, she took one last trip cross-country with her father because she was going back to California, and her father took the opportunity to have a road trip with her and drive with her, and he recorded this. And you can tell she's a good girl. She's a normal young girl. She's sitting with him. They're talking. They're looking at the sights. They're singing in the car. They're teasing each other. And at the end, they tell each other how much of a pleasure it was to travel together. Gail's father says, she's the best traveling companion I've ever had. And from the point that she joined Heaven's Gates, no matter what her parents did, they even talked to like a cult expert who told them how to behave when she called in order to make her remember her past life and get her to come home. No matter what they did, it didn't work. And she died that day in March. But Gail wasn't lost. She wasn't homeless. She had a family she loved who would take care of her. She didn't have nothing. She wasn't like Bonnie Lou or Marshall's, who had gone through some traumatic separation of family and was alone. There are a lot of former members who got out before things went bad, and they look back on their experience with Heaven's Gate very differently. Some of them rave about it and say they don't regret it at all. In fact, they almost regret not being with the group at the end. Some of them have more negative memories of Marshall and Heaven's Gate. Former member Stephen Hill was one of those who really had a bad experience. He says the group was absolutely brainwashed. He said that Applewhite created an unequal power dynamic because he was lonely and he wanted attention. Steve and his wife Yvonne, they were living a normal life. They had 2 children and she was pregnant with twins, but they thought they were being harassed. They would get weird phone calls in the middle of the night. Their vehicles were being vandalized, and Yvonne believed she was even being harassed at work. The more they would tell people what was happening, the more people would say, "You're overreacting, calm down." And they became very paranoid. They tried to transfer through work and leave the state, but Yvonne being pregnant made that very difficult. So Steve took to the internet for answers, and there he found Heaven's Gate. And he brought the idea to his wife, and she was on board for it. They thought this was an escape. They thought this was an answer to their problems. They were anxious and paranoid. They began to think everybody was out to get them. The simple life of Heaven's Gate, the promise of a utopic next level, they felt like this was exactly what they needed, and they wanted to escape. 2 weeks after giving birth to their twins, Yvonne and Steve abandoned their now 4 children, and they joined Heaven's Gate. Just a few weeks in, Yvonne expressed an interest in leaving. She didn't want to be there anymore. So Marshall Applewhite came into the room. Steve was asked to leave, and within an hour, Yvonne said she changed her mind. She told her husband, "Where am I going to go?" Once, Steve had an ear infection, and Applewhite banished him from the house, made him go outside because he said that Steve's sickness, was a bad influence on the other members. Steve walked around the tennis court for an hour and a half with his wife yelling, "Tell this thing to leave," at him the whole time. And I'm not sure if she was talking about the ear infection or if she was talking about Steve. But eventually Steve said he would leave. Yvonne went in to get Applewhite. Applewhite and Yvonne came back out, put him in a car, and they were like, "Bye. Get out of here with your rebel ear infection, trying to corrupt everybody in there." Steve says on his way to the airport, he got a call from Yvonne, and he was so excited because he was like, "Yes, she wants me to come back and get her. I knew she wouldn't just let me leave." And he picked up the phone, but it was just her asking if he had taken her Walkman with him. He went back home to Ohio. He did not reconnect with his children. He basically just walked around in a stupor, trying to figure out how he could get her back. He even sold his computer to buy a used Saab because he remembered how much she liked foreign cars. And he just pictured himself driving up to the Heaven's Gate mansion in this car where she would just see it and be like, oh my God, this is what I've been waiting for. And he would save her and they would drive away together. But this hope was crushed when he saw the aerial footage of the Heaven's Gate mansion, and the next day he got the call letting him know that his wife was one of the people who had taken her own life. Who were the others? This is a big question. What kind of people join a group like this and then willingly sign on to kill themselves in a mass suicide? I wish I could tell you all about every single one of them, but this video would be 10 hours long. But I want to go over with you quickly some of the things about these people, because I want you to see they weren't all hippies. They weren't all disconnected already from the world. They weren't all people who had nothing to live for. Raymond Allen Bowers was fresh out of a divorce. He loved his wife very much, and she left him. And then his brother died. So he was in a really bad place. He joined the group for a while, then he left and actually worked with a band as a musician. Then he saw one of the group members again while he was out on tour with the band, and he went back.
Modi, did you want to say anything about your return to the class?
The same kind of process happened to me. I left in approximately latter part of 1981 after being in the class about 6 years approximately. And I was overcome thinking, wanting to see the vehicle's family and things like that, and didn't leave a note or anything because I knew who my real family was, but I just had a feeling I needed to go back out into the world per se to see what it was like and to see what might be there. But I knew in my heart I'd always reconnect and always be back. And I didn't know how it was going to transpire, but it just seems like I had instructions to leave at the time. I didn't understand at the time, and I'm just so happy to be back. I was rescued not long ago.
Well, we were all happy to see you come back. We know what a struggle it was being out there. But I think I can speak for everyone else in the class that we've been especially impressed with Damodi's positive attitude and willingness to help with everything that needed to happen.
And here's Stephen Terry McCarter. As you'll be able to see, he was one of the more devout, die-hard members of Heaven's Gate. I also believe he was the one who suffered the botched castration and was very happy afterwards.
How long have you been in this classroom circumstance?
I've been in here since Valentine's Day 21 years ago. This is the happiest day of my life. I mean, I've been looking forward to this for so long. Some would probably sit here and, I mean, somebody on the other side of this camera watching this tape would probably say, what's going on? You know, you all must not have a life, or you're deluded, or you're brainwashed, or whatever their thinking might be. It's hard to tune into. From our perspective, from my perspective, this is godsend. I mean, this is the answer to everything. You know, these flesh vehicles. I mean, if you use the analogy of a car, and you know, people may keep their cars for a long time before they finally wear out and they clunk out and they die on them, and you know, they go and get another car. Or some people, they say, well, you know, here's a newer model. It's much nicer, and this one, you know, doesn't quite perform the way I could, and I'd like to move into this new car. Get rid of the old one, get a new one. I mean, that's about all we're talking about. It's not a big deal. This isn't a troubling circumstance. Don't take it as that. It's just a gateway, just a doorway.
And this is Gail Maeder, the young woman who went on a cross-country trip with her father to California, and then she joined Heaven's Gate.
Well, I just want to let everyone know how lucky and happy I feel to be here, and let you know that what we're about to do is certainly nothing to think negatively about. We're all choosing of our own free will to go to the next level with T and Doe. That's right. And they are certainly not what the media is going to paint them out to be. I never got to meet T in this incarnation in her human vehicle, but I can tell you that Doe is the most special, dignified, unhuman, objective person that you can ever meet. That's right. He has helped us so much and put up with so much and never done anything that seemed even close to the way a human would respond. And I guess that's really all I want to say.
Okay. That sounded pretty good.
And this is Julie, also known as Livodi. She was raised by a foster family, and she spent much of her childhood studying and eventually got her nursing degree from the University of Massachusetts at Amherst. She graduated cum laude in 1974. Shortly afterwards, she saw her best friend drown, and her birth father, Jules, with whom she'd always remained close, die of cancer. The deaths just made her collapse, and her brother Andrew says we could never get her back after that. Livodi would become Applewhite's personal nurse, and she was also the one who performed the botched castration.
Okay, we have Janodi and Livodi with us today. Livodi on the left, Janodi on the right. How long have the two of you been in this classroom circumstance?
Well, Janodi and I, both these vehicles ended up being a couple that were in Oregon in 1975, and we took these two vehicles. You've probably heard of the news media story in 75 about a bunch of people disappearing from Walport, Oregon. Well, we're still here, and not for long. We're very happy and proud to have been members of Tito's class, and couldn't be happier about what we're about to do. Doubt was never an issue. Certainly, at times, temptations of the vehicle or dumb influences might turn our heads for this reason or that, but there's always a deep down knowing that from the moment of seeing Tiendo that this is why I'm here, to take this vehicle and do this task. And always knew that I knew Tiendo from before this time, that there was strong recognition.
And the woman next to her is Judith Rowland. She was a homemaker. Her husband returned to his Ventura, California home after work on April 10th, 1975, to find a note from Judy, his wife of 9 years. She left behind their 2 children, Cindy, 8, and Joey, 6, and wrote simply, "I went to work with the Lord." She was a former model. She was recruited into Applewhite's fold by her mother, Lorraine, who claims they were his first followers.
The only thing I can think is that, it seems like probably the ones who will be, the blame will be pointed at would be Tiendo, and we've always had free reign to come and go and believe or not believe since day one in the class, and in fact more times than not Tiendo would put effort into pushing anybody out of the class that didn't want to be here, and wasn't just full steam ahead with what they knew the truth of the next level to be. And the funny thing is that we all came just human vehicles with minds entering those vehicles that had to take them over. And the crazy way that it works is that the more we put into practice the teachings and the behavior and the guidelines that Tiendo taught us, the proof of the truth that they held becomes more apparent, and behavior and discipline and ways of thinking that we had held all of our human vehicles became distasteful and something that was beneath us. So I have to say the same as Livodi, that the last thing that I would have thought on September 13th, 1975 was that in a week I would find myself as part of a group and leaving behind my human life and starting on this. But there was just a knowing and a recognition. I think recognition is probably the better word, knowing that that Tiendo were someone that I had known and respected prior to this incarnation.
And then you had David Moore. He was described as an angry, often emotional 19-year-old with a shock of dark wavy hair, and he stumbled upon the cult in 1975 when they had a meeting in a park near his home in Los Gatos, California. He disappeared soon afterward. David is the son of Nancy Brown.
I know that I was sent here for a task, and I'm not talking about this vehicle. I know that this vehicle was picked and prepped with my assistance and with Tiendo's, and it was given a deposit. And that deposit in that vehicle sought and searched for the truth. And then my mind came in and started an incarnation back in 1975 in October when I first heard this information about Tiendo. And once I heard that information, it answered all my questions. And I could say all the things that my classmates on this tape have said before me because I couldn't agree more. But I just want to say that I don't identify with this flesh vehicle, this flesh body. And those of you who see this tape, I'm not sure who you will be, but some of you may have worked with me. I may have met you when we have been out in the world in service to the next level doing various tasks. And like Ginodi said, I wanted to tell you who we were and what we were about, and now I can tell you. And I know that we're at the end, and I look very, very forward to this next major step of ours where we're going to be shedding these creatures, these primitive creatures that we have used for our lesson ground, and that we're going to be moving on to the next evolutionary level above human and taking on our brand new vehicles that we're going to be using in the next level.
Then there was Yvonne McCurdy Hill, Steve Hill's wife, the woman who abandoned 4 of her children and then finally her husband in order to join a cult right before they committed mass suicide.
How long have you been in the class?
I've been in the class, will be 6 months Sunday. I think I may be the last one up to this point to have come to be with Tiendo at this time. I'm very happy to be here.
Do you have any thoughts about this, what's next for us?
The only thoughts that I have is the preparation that I've made to separate from the vehicle. Leave it all behind. There's nothing here for me. I want to look forward, keep my eye on Tiendo. That's my path.
And then there was Erica, the young girl who'd been so impressed with Frank Lyford's motorcycle so many years before. The one who had given him a hug in the airport on their way back home to Calgary for a short visit after she'd gotten permission from Marshall Applewhite.
Individual choosing to become a member of the Kingdom of Heaven. And Tiendo are definitely members of the Kingdom of Heaven. They have shown through their example and everything that they've done that they are not of this world. They do not have mammalian behavior. They do not react the same way we do to things. They have a higher standard, and it's been a joyful experience to me to be here and to have been with them. And I wish I could express the gratitude I have towards all the effort and the patience that they've given me and my classmates. And I know that's where Norody gets choked up too, and I could get choked up. But
So what's really similar about these people, though? What's similar? Not all of them, but a lot of them experienced loss of somebody. Loss of a loved one, a father, a divorce, some sort of failure in their life that caused them to feel human and weak. Some sort of isolation, some sort of event that made them question life and death and the world and outer space. Were they crazy because they believed in aliens? Were they crazy because the world to them had become an ugly place and they were tired of being in it? Were they crazy because they thought they were special and meant for something bigger and the people around them couldn't understand it? Why do we enjoy stories like Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter so much? Because the characters in these books, they came from humble beginnings. They came from nothing. They were nothing. They were just normal people. A little orphan boy who never fits in and lives in a cupboard under the stairs is actually the only living descendant of a great wizard family. Harry Potter was the boy who lived. He was attacked by Voldemort, but his mother's sacrifice protected him from that so that he could go on to save the world and everyone in it from Voldemort's evil plan. Frodo Baggins is a nobody hobbit living a normal hobbit life when he discovers he had inherited the ring and along with it, the quest to destroy the ring through a treacherous journey where the forces of evil are trying to kill him at all costs. These stories appeal to us because they're an escape from our sometimes boring and mundane lives. It's fun to imagine that we could be wizards or royalty or somebody powerful masquerading as just a regular, normal human being. Was this a cult, or was it a group of like-minded people who in the end found what they wanted? They found each other, and in doing so, they found acceptance and peace. The thing I struggle with is they could have left at any time, right? They were encouraged to leave at times. If Marshall Applewhite didn't think you were on board for everything, he would want you to leave. He didn't want you to be there. That was probably because he didn't want you causing dissent through the rest of the group. He didn't want you spreading your doubts. But still, nobody was trapped, physically at least. I do think there was that feeling of finally being accepted, of finally having a home and a family, but that was what was keeping them there. The decisions to give away their belongings and disconnect from their loved ones, it was a suggestion made by Applewhite and Nettles, but it was a decision made by each individual person. They made that decision. Nobody forced them or could have forced them to do that. In the end, they took that lethal mixture on their own. This wasn't Jonestown. There was no armed men lined up with rifles trained on you as you walked up to get your cup of poison. They did it willingly. They did it peacefully. There was no struggle. There was no pressure. And I have a feeling, even if at the very end somebody had wanted to change their mind, Applewhite would have opened the doors and said, yeah, get out of here. You're not elevated like us. Leave. Did they actually believe that they were going to be getting on a spaceship and going off to some extraterrestrial utopia? Or were they just tired of the world and how ugly it had become to them? How sad? Maybe there's nothing left for them here, and the only thing they had left was the people in that group, and if those people were going to go, they didn't want to stay on Earth without them. I do have a sneaking suspicion that Marshall Applewhite didn't believe his own teachings. I think he deluded himself eventually into believing it. I think he did manipulate people into believing it. I blame him for even giving these people the idea to begin with. But in the end, how much blame can we place on Bonnie Lou Nettles and Marshall Applewhite? In the end, these people did have free will. They weren't trapped in an armed compound in Guyana. They were living in a mansion in suburban California. The door was open. They could have left at any time, and they chose not to. And in the end, maybe that was the right decision for them. Now that mansion, once they all killed themselves in it, it was put on the market and they tried to sell it, but they couldn't. They couldn't even get anywhere close to what it was worth. And eventually they knocked the house down. They even changed the name of the street because there was just so much bad memories and connotations attached to it. And they built a whole new house and it's on a whole new street now. So I wonder if anybody lives there. In conclusion, in my opinion, I love this world. As dark and dirty and evil as it can be, I love this world. And maybe that makes me less spiritually enlightened. Maybe my connection to my own physical body makes me less advanced in my soul. But I don't care. I am very connected to my shell and my vehicle. And that's why I have a hard time sometimes thinking about dying, because what's going to happen to my body after? And people will be like, well, it doesn't matter. You're not there anymore. But this body, I do connect it to who I am. These are the arms that I hold my children in every night. These are the hands that my husband held when we said our marriage vows to each other. Every scar or stretch mark or mark on my body is connected to a very specific event in my life. And I do attach my soul to my body, and that's okay. I will take this world with the sadness that it comes with the hurt that you can sometimes feel, because without the sadness and without the hurt, the happiness and the joy and the love don't mean as much. When you truly feel like actual happiness and joy, you feel that way because you've experienced the opposite before, because you've been sad and you've been low and you've been hurt and you've been in pain. So when you're not, and you feel like exhilaration, love, excitement, joy, all these emotions that wouldn't exist on the next level, that is a truly human experience. That is a truly human experience that I would not trade for the world, ever. So I can understand why some of these people made the decision they made, but it would never be the decision that I would make. I'll take 80, hopefully 90, maybe 100 good years on this earth with the people that I love, rather than an eternity in some celestial utopia where I don't have the people I love, where I don't even know what love is or experience it. Sorry that got weird there at the end with my musings, but let me know what you guys think in the comments, if you agree with me. Which side do you think you would have been on? The side that could have seen themselves severing all connection to your loved ones and to emotions in your physical body? Or do you see yourself on the side that I'm kind of sitting on, like, I don't care how bad the world is because it's really good too. And I would rather take the really good with the bad rather than just have like, blah all the time, like just floating along in your alien body in some utopia. So I told you I had some quick channel news, and basically it's just that my next video that I'm working on will be a Mystery Monday, which will be up this coming Monday, and it is the Scott Peterson case. Now I know that's not a mystery, right? He's on death row, but there are so many people who've requested this case because of the fact that he's saying he's innocent, and some people believe him. So I'm gonna go over the case with fresh eyes, although I think he's guilty, or I did think he was guilty before going into this research. I am looking at all the research with fresh eyes and an open mind so that we can kind of figure out if it's possible, if he's innocent or not. And I'm actually coming up with some good stuff, so I'm excited for that. I also have merch coming out very soon. I am working with somebody on it now and just waiting to get a sample so I can make sure the quality and everything's good. And I can't wait to show it to you guys. I'm so excited. I've been working so hard on it and I can't wait to share it with you guys. So we should be hopefully hearing about that mid-February. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you more than anything. I gotta tell you, again, I know I was mushy at the beginning and I'm gonna end mushy as well. Love you guys so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being my community and my support system. You are everything to me. And I cannot wait to see you next time. Have a great day. Stay kind and stay beautiful. Bye.
We're going to a world that does not live the same way they do in the human kingdom. We're looking forward to this. We're happy and excited, and
We have no fear. We're proud and looking forward to what's ahead, and we believe all our classmates feel the same way.
How good I feel about being here and being given this opportunity to go to the next level. Just the opportunity, the gift is just it's overwhelming is the only word that I can come up with now. I'm the happiest person in the world.
And that we might see you all again, and then we might not, but we hope that you remember us as we were, and not how other people are going to try and tell you that we are.
The whole thing is about service to the next level, and I had no doubt, and I'm very happy, and this is a very joyous time for the class to be able to be returning home.
It is my choice to lay down my borrowed physical body to prove to the next level my love and the trust I have in my older members for what they have shown me as their example of what I can become. My thoughts in these last hours are only of joy and wonder at the thought of going home to my older members and being in T's house at last.
We're all choosing of our own free will, go to the next level with T and go. And they are certainly not what the media is going to paint them out to be.
And one last thing we'd like to say is 39 to beam up. Thank you.